All right, you're back on the John Fredericks Radio Network, live Washington, D.C. Steve Bannon's War Room in the Basement. Jason Miller with us. He's part of the War Room impeachment team, former communications director, Trump campaign 2016, and he's with us now. Jason, a couple of things. Yesterday, let's go over just, there's so much to do. We got to do a rapid fire. Yesterday, the testimony by Lieutenant Colonel Vindon. What did you think of the whole thing, especially him gumming there in his full military regalia?
Well, first, I think it was very disrespectful to the commander-in-chief. I think it was just to blatantly flaunt a policy disagreement, which, again, John, let's not bury the lead here. This is an effort by unelected bureaucrats and folks who believe that their foreign policy is better than President Trump's. President Trump, who, by the way, was elected by the people in 2016. No one's ever voted for Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, ever. And so they're trying to purposely undermine this America First agenda. And so to go parading in there in his uniform, I mean, for someone who has earned a Purple Heart, who has served honorably in the military, to then go up to Capitol Hill like that and openly disrespect the chain of command, I think is just disgusting.
All right, so why do they then go back to their jobs?
That's a great question, and I think it's a question why Ambassador Taylor even got on a plane to go back to Ukraine. If you are put in a position of leadership, if you are part of the national security apparatus, if you're part of the United States Foreign Service operation, if you're an ambassador, there is a chain of command. The President of the United States was voted into that position because the people believe in his or her someday agenda, period, point blank. That's what it is. The people voted for Donald J. Trump. They did not vote for these people. But the whole reason why we're seeing this impeachment fight is because there's a disagreement and effort to undermine President Trump's foreign policy agenda. That's really what this is.
When you say undermine his foreign policy agenda, not carry out the duly elected commander's in chief American First agenda and just try to overturn it, thwart it, throw monkey wrenches in it, stop it.
Yeah, and look, the status quo, the way of doing things in the past, in many places just hasn't worked. And so many of the bureaucrats who are in the administration, again, they may have been there before President Trump, they may have even come on during the time that President Trump has been in office. They believe that the U.S. should be the world's cop. They believe that the U.S. should be the world's piggy bank, so to speak, and fund everything. President Trump, when he came in office, said, we're going to put America first. We're not going to, it's not our job to go and coddle the entire world. Now, the one thing I haven't had personally extensive conversations about this with President Trump. This doesn't mean America alone. It doesn't mean America only. What it means is no longer are we going to be funding wars that we don't need to be in.
Right.
It means that we're not going to just sit by while there's, in the example with Ukraine, there was clear Ukrainian influence in our elections in 2016. And so President Trump is putting his foot down and saying enough is enough. We're not going to wait for years and more talks. We're going to go and take action right away. And that's why we voted for him. That's why we'll vote for him again in 2020.
You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, live Washington, D.C. Steve Bannon, Basement War Room. Jason Miller with us, former communications director, Trump campaign 2016, part of Steve's War Room impeachment episode, I think 10, coming up today, something like that, right? 10.
11.
We
doubled up on.
We doubled up, and we're probably going to double up again tomorrow, I would think.
Yes, at a certain point, I think I'm just going to live in the studio. I think that there's so much action going on with this, and we want to make sure that people have the up-to-date information. One of the great things here on the John Fredericks Radio Network, one of the fantastic things about this opportunity is we're continually, Steve and Raheem and myself, getting feedback from people saying, you know what, we don't understand all this impeachment stuff, what's going on. You have parliamentary procedure, and you have Adam Schiff's speakeasy down in the basement of the Capitol, and you have all these... You have all these names ending in vowels that we don't understand, have never heard of before. We break it down, we make it real simple, we make sure that as Trump allies or Trump supporters, you're able in that elevator ride from the first to the fourth floor as you're heading up to the office today to very clearly break down, here's what's going on, and here's why this is an effort to undermine President Trump.
Let's get to the impeachment vote tomorrow. It appears that, it's not an impeachment vote, it's a vote on the inquiry. What changes?
Well, there'll be, first of all, I got to go and set the table here that there are a couple important things. So first of all, by Speaker Pelosi, this is the first time we've ever seen her change direction. I think she really threw an interception. I've been putting in football terms where she's getting blitzed by an all-star linebacker crew of Mark Meadows and Jim Jordan and Andy Biggs and Lee Zeldin and Matt Gaetz, future Speaker Matt Gaetz, and she was rattled, and she made a change in direction. We have never before seen Nancy Pelosi change direction like that. Here's why it's happening. Because Nancy Pelosi is hearing from her members who are getting hounded in the national media and at home saying, well, why are you doing this in an unconstitutional manner? And so by Pelosi doing this, what she's trying to do is lay down political cover for her 31 Democratic freshmen who are in districts that Trump won. But here's where I think she's made a strategic mistake. All it's going to do is force a proxy vote at this stage where they're going to have to go on the record. You talk about a Max Rose from Staten Island or a number of these other Democratic freshmen all around the country. Now they're going to be on the record for this. They can't hide in the tall grass any longer. So with this specific vote that's coming up, number one, it's acknowledgement that everything up until this point has been conducted in an unconstitutional manner. You can't unring the bell or change the rules of the game at the end of the first quarter, which is exactly what they're trying to do. So with this resolution coming up, it's going to do a couple things. One, it will shift the authority to essentially say who gets to have certain interviews. It'll make some, and I put the emphasis on some, hearings public. It'll give Republicans some, and again, I keep going back to this word some because this whole thing is a bit of a charade, ability to cross-examine or have some subpoena power, but still many of the fundamental rights and privileges that Republicans offered President Clinton back in 1998 are not being made available to President Trump this go-round, and I think that's a travesty.
Chief of Staff Mulvaney yesterday, we find out last night, was not informed about the al-Baghdadi operation. He's a chief of staff. That's unheard of. He was at home in South Carolina. They never told him. You can't see this headline, Jason Miller, and think that he's long for this world.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a good look. But here's one thing I'd give some folks a little bit of perspective on. With President Trump, if you're in the room, you have a voice. If you're not in the room, he's not going to pick up the phone and call you and say, hey, can we punch you in to talk with the people who are in the room? So, for example, I remember on one cabinet position conversation back during the transition, President Trump, there were maybe about 15 of us in the room, and it was narrowed down to 2 people. He said, okay, let's go around the room and see what everyone thinks. I want to hear a rationale on why this is the best person. And there were, everyone across, it was, myself and Steve Miller and Hope Hicks and Reince Priebus and Steve Bannon and Jared, Ivanka. You had really the entire crew that was there, and he went around. In no time did President Trump say, hey, you know what, let me go and dial in somebody when I have this group of people who I trust and listen to in the room with me. President Trump is just very clear. You're in the room or you're not. And it's Chief of Staff Mulvaney should know at this point that, I know his family is probably back. I believe they're back in South Carolina, and he's commuting back and forth. But either you're in the room or you aren't, and that's really on Mulvaney.
For not being there.
Yeah. You have to.
What if somebody have told him, like, this is going down, come back here?
You would think. That's not a good look. But here's John.
It's a nice spin, but look, they didn't even tell the chief of staff, so they're going to make a change. That's obvious.
But here's the thing: where with President Trump, he never makes a major staffing change unless he has another replacement that's already lined up. It's almost kind of like Tarzan,
right?
Doesn't let go of one vine until he grabs onto the other.
Right.
And from everyone that I've talked with, there is no likely next person that's on deck or in close talks or anything of that. And so how many times do we have this same conversation about Reince Priebus or John Kelly?
A lot. Right. Well, I don't think he's long for this world. I don't think you have one of these operations and don't tell your chief of staff. So I think he's going to get replaced. But you're right. Until they have a replacement, he's going to be the chief of staff. But based on his performance at that press conference I was in, I think last week, I walked out of there knowing that he thinks he's really smart. He thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. Certainly didn't appear that way at that press conference.
As President Trump would say it, not good.
Not good. Not good. John Fredericks Radio Network.